Welcome back to the Backseat Startup Podcast with your host, Andrew Hutton.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Backseat Startup. I'm your host, Andrew, and I'm here with Craig Fernandes, the founder and CEO of SecureMyScholarship. Actually, I didn't check. Is that right, CEO, Craig?
I'm the CEO.
Awesome. Perfect. So I'm really excited for today's episode because Craig has been building a really cool business based over in Dubai, based globally, really. They have a remote team that has been impacting and supporting students, global students, with scholarships, which is just really cool. So I'm excited for him to share what he's been building, how he's been building it. I'm also excited to do what we do here on the Backseat Startup and dig into questions that we find over on Reddit that are founders asking real live questions into the universe, hoping for answers. We're going to go find one and answer it. So stay tuned for that. But before we dive in, Craig, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show. It's really great to have you on.
Thanks a lot for having me, Andrew. It is my pleasure to be on and, happy to answer any questions that we have.
Amazing. So SecureMyScholarship, you were just telling me a little bit before we got on the pod about that. And I love the business model. I love marketplace models where you have these two sides and you're connecting people who need to be connected. And you're doing it with students and universities in a way that I've never heard before by guaranteeing scholarships. So give us the short version of what SecureMyScholarship is.
Sure. SecureMyScholarship is basically an EdTech platform that connects students with guaranteed scholarships and fee waivers at university. We basically set up SecureMyScholarship as a means to help make education accessible and affordable to students from middle class and working class families all over the world. We've been around for about a year and a half. We launched in October of 2021, and in our 1.5 years, we've dispersed over $6.3 million in scholarships through our platform, changing the lives of thousands of students around the world who've enrolled into many of our 300 plus university partners.
That's amazing. 300 partners, thousands of students, just in a year and a half. Your background, you're so suited for this. This is personal for you. Tell a little bit about that story. Just a little bit of your upbringing that led this to be like the thing that it feels like you're almost meant to do.
Sure. So I'm Indian by nationality, but my parents moved to Dubai, moved to the UAE in the early 90s for work. I grew up in Dubai, but not the glitzy, glamoury part of Dubai, on the outskirts of the city. Small, tiny apartment, densely populated area, costs us about $1,500 a year in rent. I guess from a very early age, I knew that if I wanted to achieve anything in life, I'd have to work extremely hard to do it. My dream was always to go to America to study. That's where I wanted to be. I wanted to study in America. And America is the most expensive higher education destination in the world. So my parents sat me down one day and they said, Craig, listen, we're just not going to be able to afford it. You got to pick somewhere else. Unfortunately, it's too expensive. Now, it was my dream to go to America, and I didn't want to give up on that. So I said, you know what, I'm going to try to see what I can do, and I'm going to try to make it happen. Worked extremely hard in high school, graduated top of my class, straight A student, valedictorian, multiple sports teams, debate team, business team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Put together a rock solid college application and applied, with a prayer. I applied, got into about 8 universities across the United States. But I chose to go to the University of Iowa, which is about 4 hours from Chicago. It wasn't the best ranked university that I got into, but it was the most affordable because they gave me a bunch of scholarships to attend. They said, Craig, listen, you're an outstanding student and we'd love to have you. We're going to give you a bunch of scholarships to come here and study. And that made it affordable for me to study there. So I went. And I studied there for 4 years, graduated, got my degree, all of that stuff. But through this experience, I learned firsthand the value or the difference that a scholarship or a number of scholarships, a bunch of scholarships, can make in a student's life. I truly believe that quality higher education, and I say quality because you can get a degree anywhere, honestly, but quality higher education has the potential to fundamentally change someone's life. But I think that for many people out there, they are priced out of the university system. I think if you look at top universities around the world, they are very expensive. Their tuition is very expensive, and it's rising year over year. And I don't think that's fair.
I mean, it's one of those. There's those charts and graphs that show like the cost of universities being the steepest graph when things like smartphones and televisions and things that have technology going down. And, I think everyone in the US here kind of laments the rising cost of higher education. And that's not even taking a global perspective, which you are. And it's such a problem. It's so important to solve. I love that this is kind of baked into your journey, right? It flows so naturally. We also don't even have time to go into the business that you built in between university and starting SecureMyScholarship, which was an important launching pad. But you've been building with universities and for students, and so really, really cool how this is kind of like ingrained. Give us the last question I'll have for you, just because I think this is really exciting. You mentioned thousands of students, millions of dollars in scholarships. Where are you going next? It sounds like you're on a tear. Sounds like things are rolling. What's the trajectory? Where do you take SecureMyScholarship next?
Man, honestly, we've barely even scratched the surface. You mentioned that we've dispersed $6 million in scholarships. Our North Star is to disperse $100 million in scholarships to students from middle class and working class families by 2027. I mentioned thousands of students whose lives we've impacted. There was a research report that was released a couple of years back by an education research firm called Hall and IQ. In that research report, they stipulated that for every one student that studied abroad, every one student that went abroad to study, there were 4 others who could not, for a variety of reasons. But the chief reason in most of those circumstances was finance. They simply couldn't afford it. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of students who are priced out of higher education, who want to go overseas to study, but simply cannot afford it. So we've barely even scratched the surface. I think we have a long way to go. Our North Star is to disperse $100 million in scholarships. If we can hit that or come even close to hitting that, we will change the lives of hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And I personally think that's a mission worth fighting for.
Yeah, mission driven. And yeah, you're going out of market that doesn't have an end in sight. So that's really exciting. Just scratching the surface of what Craig's up to. So let's switch gears real fast. We've got our juices flowing. You all know Craig a little bit better. We're going to go find some real life problems, some things that actual folks on the internet are struggling with. Let me hop over to Reddit. I've been scrolling through here a little bit before, so I don't think we're going to find anything too salacious. But Craig, let's see if there's any interesting questions here. We're just going to let the universe guide us towards something.
Today's episode of the Backseat Startup Podcast is brought to you by Seed Scout. Seed Scout is a cold outreach alternative that relies 100% on an autonomous double opt-intro system. Log in, pick a plan, and request intros to investors at ease. On Seed Scout, know what investors are active, which ones have recently engaged, and send intro requests to ideal investors with a click of a button. Once connected, carry on the conversation over email and feel free to take it off platform. Now, back to the show.
We're jumping in here. Let's look at these questions. Looks like these might be really interesting. 2 together that maybe we can grab at once to make one kind of mega question: finding a tech co-founder, and which we can add a question mark to it, and how to properly vet potential co-founders. Just in general, I think this is a really important topic: how to find co-founders, how to vet co-founders, just that whole process of going from not linked with a co-founder to having a co-founder is one of the most important decisions that a founder can make. So yeah, let's just bite this one off, Craig. When you see these questions, what are your first thoughts of whether it's advice or wisdom or things that have happened to you that you would share with a founder in this instance?
Yeah, I think these are actually perfect questions because I actually am a business student myself, so I actually have no technical skills whatsoever. Technically illiterate, if you may say that. If you may say so. But finding a tech co-founder and finding a founder, I think just to kind of combine the answers a little bit, I'll talk about finding a co-founder or vetting potential co-founders first, and then get to specifically a tech co-founder from my experience personally.
That works.
When looking for a co-founder, honestly, like I think the most important thing is to find somebody with complementary skills. A lot of people like working with people who are like them, which actually is counterintuitive. You don't want to do that. You want to find somebody who complements your weaknesses. So somebody who is good at the things that you can't do, and vice versa. That's usually not the case. I've seen many startups that have they're founded by 3 MBA grads, or startups that are founded by 2 engineers, and that's not usually ideal. You want to have a bit of this and that, kind of like Zuckerberg and Saverin in the beginning of Facebook, or Jobs and Wozniak. But that's kind of like what you want. From my past experience in terms of vetting co-founders, man, honestly, I actually have looked through my, I guess, contact book and just gone to people that I know, because building a startup is hard work. Building a startup, it requires blood, sweat, and tears. And somebody could be, a very intelligent person and have all the smarts in the book. But I think Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's, said it best. Genius doesn't matter. God-given genius, God-given intelligence doesn't matter. Great education doesn't matter. The real difference in terms of building something successful is hard work, determination, perseverance, just that willpower and that drive to win. That is the most important thing, and that's what Ray Kroc said, and I actually agree with him wholeheartedly. But the thing is, if you don't know someone, you don't actually know what their work ethic or how much willpower they actually have. You can look at grades and stuff like that, but that's not going to tell you anything. So I actually always think, find people that you know, find people that you've worked with, find people who you've been around before, who you can say, okay, fine, when things get tough, this person is going to swim, sink or swim. When things get tough, this person's going to fight on, and that's incredibly important, I think.
Yeah. I'll just piggyback on that thought. Right? So many of the successful founding stories, especially the ones that make it, all the way to our kind of collective consciousness, they absolutely knew each other. It's definitely the right. I think it's like one of those heuristics. There's old wives' tale wisdom to it, right? It's definitely wise to work with folks that you've got a track record with, right? And then of course they fit all those criteria. I've had this discussion with other founders before, because it's not always possible, right? It's either, your stage of life, maybe you don't know a lot of entrepreneurial people, maybe because I find that happens quite a lot, right? Somebody is breaking into entrepreneurship and they're the only one of their group. They're only one in their family. Like they kind of don't have that ecosystem around them. They haven't necessarily been entrepreneurial for a long, I think that there's that one journey where you're entrepreneurial kind of all the time and you are surrounded with people, but then there's another journey where it's kind of fresh. And so you're breaking in, everyone is kind of new. How do you think about, I have an answer, but I'm curious if you have an idea about how to, if you can't work with somebody, how do you vet somebody who is, borderline stranger, right? Maybe you met them on the Y Combinator founder matching tool. I was doing the podcast I recorded a couple of days ago. That's how the co-founders met. Did not know each other. Y Combinator founder matching tool. And they seem to be going great a year or two or so into their business. So anyway, it's interesting. I'm curious if you have any thoughts when it's actually kind of like that.
I think like a marriage, don't dive in too quickly. Perhaps spend some time working with the other person, understand them better, and then take the plunge in terms of actually giving them equity and all of that stuff per se. But I actually want to come back to the other part of the question, which was finding a tech co-founder.
Yeah, please.
Now, from past experience, what I've actually seen now, as I said, we had to find technical leadership for the team. And I think the guys that we have building out our tech are absolutely incredible. But what I've actually seen is that what makes a tech rock star is 3 things. Now, most 10Xers have the first 2 things, which is really amazing intelligence and incredible work ethic. And that's great per se. But that's not really enough, I think. If you're looking for a tech co-founder, what I would recommend is finding somebody who's incredibly smart. That's very important, and somebody who's got incredible work ethic. That's also very important. But look for a creative skill set as well. Somebody who can not only not only code in essence, not only develop, but who also excels at maybe music or maybe a sport or something along those lines. Because what that actually does is it tells you that they are also able to excel creatively, which is very, very important when building out complex architectures. It means that your code will be a lot better. It means that they will think of more efficient ways of doing things because that's just how their mind works. That's a hack that I've actually seen that's worked very, very well for us. But yeah,
I think that's really wise. I think if you're not technical, it always feels like, dang, how do I vet this person? So you said something earlier, you have to work with them, right? Maybe if you can find some trusted technical advisor to help you understand some of that baseline stuff. But I think you added in like a much higher order, like a fully well-rounded person is technical, hardworking, and creative. Absolutely. And in a lot of ways, if you want to be, outlier successful with a startup, you kind of need outlier people. So it's probably the right angle for it. So Craig, that's really good stuff. I think that's how we'll end it on that piece of wisdom, because I think that's right on. So finding co-founder, we just touched the surface of finding co-founders, going through that dating process, getting to know them, pulling from the pool of people that you've worked with, that you've grinded with, and then being really thoughtful if you have to go get a technical co-founder when maybe you're not technical yourself. Important piece. So let's wrap it up there. Again, we just want to leave the audience wanting more. How can people find you, Craig? So what's the place that you'd send folks to learn more about Secure My Scholarship, to reach you? Where should people follow up with you?
Yeah, I mean, if you are a student looking for university, bachelor's, or your undergrad or your postgrad, check us out at SecureMyScholarship.com. We are absolutely free for students, and we are open to all. So if you're a student looking to go to university, check us out at SecureMyScholarship.com. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm happy to talk. I really love speaking to startup founders, entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, especially if you're in like an impact-driven or mission-driven startup. I'd love to speak with you. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not on any other social media, unfortunately, but find me on LinkedIn, Craig Fernandes, and connect with me and drop me a DM. Happy to speak.
That's perfect. All right. That's all we have for you today. Thanks for listening to the Backseat Startup. This has been a really fun show with Craig Fernandes, founder of Secure My Scholarship. We'll see you next time. Thanks everyone for watching. The Backseat Startup Podcast is brought to you by Startup Founder Daily, a platform to showcase your startup and compete for free PR. Head over to startupfounderdaily.com to submit your company. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Andrew, one of the founders of Day One, and we offer personalized founder coaching tailored to help founders get close to their customers, nail your pitch, and map out next steps to grow your business and raise capital. You can go over to joinday1.com to check out what we do and how we've helped over 500 founders to date. Use code SFD250 for $250 off the program fee.